Good evening, councillors and members of the public. Welcome to this extraordinary meeting of the Council, which has been convened to consider urgent business related to the Council's response to the Government's invitation to submit proposals for local government reorganisation. Following the publication of the English Devolution White Paper last December, as members will be aware, Derby City Council has been working closely with district and borough councils across Derbyshire to explore and prepare proposals in response to the Secretary of State's invitation. The deadline for submission of those responses is 28th of November 2025. This evening's meeting provides an opportunity for full Council to comment on the draft proposal prepared by the Leader of the Council and the Chief Executive, in collaboration with our neighbouring authorities and in line with the resolution agreed by Council in January this year. Any recommendation arising from tonight's debate will be referred to Cabinet for consideration before any formal proposal is adopted. Local government reorganisation is a subject that affects us all, and I'm sure we will hear a range of strong and well-considered views expressed this evening. I would ask all councillors to conduct the debate with courtesy and respect in accordance with the Council Constitution and the guidance of statutory officers. Please listen carefully to one another's contributions and keep your remarks focused on the matter before us. Thank you. We will now move to the business of the meeting. Before we deal with the single substantive item on business on the agenda today, are there any apologies, please? Councillor Bonser.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got apologies from Councillor Whitby and Councillor Wilson, and Councillor Shanker and Councillor Martin intend to be here, but they are delayed on other business.
Thank you. Councillor Prosser. Councillor Lindsay. Any others? Item 2, Declaration of Interest. The Monitoring Officer has considered external legal advice in respect to the extent of which any member may hold a disclosable pecuniary interest by virtue of the receipt of an allowance from this authority, their role as a Member of Parliament, or the membership of another public body likely to be affected by the reorganisation proposals. I will shortly invite the Monitoring Officer to address the Council on this matter. Are there any other declarations of interest, please? Okay. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As you already stated, I have taken external legal advice on this point. No councillor in this chamber or who is planning on being in this chamber, including those who are... Thank you. Including any members of Parliament or members of another local authority in Derbyshire, have a personal interest in this matter. They are not the ultimate decision maker adjudicating over the matter. The decision maker is the Secretary of State. At no point is a member acting as a judge in their own cause, but is rather submitting a proposal from the point of view of the organisation of which they are a part. To avoid any doubt in relation to disclosable pecuniary interests, I am granting a dispensation to all councillors for the duration of this meeting from the restrictions under section 31(4)A and B of the Localism Act 2011 to allow all councillors to participate in discussions and vote on this item on the agenda without the need to declare a specific interest.
Thank you, Emily. Right, item 3. We now move to our main item of business, which is a report of the Leader of the Council and Chief Executive in respect of local government reorganisation, which I referred to earlier. In December, the Government published its English Devolution White Paper, which set out a series of measures intended to transform how public services are delivered at a local and regional level across England. At our January meeting, this Council tasked the Leader and Chief Executive with entering negotiations with neighbouring authorities to determine the most appropriate form of local government for Derby and Derbyshire. Since then, some councils in Derbyshire submitted interim proposals to the Ministry of Communities, Housing and Local Government, pending development of a full business case prior to the late November deadline. We meet this evening to consider that business case, which contains several alternative proposals for the future structure of local government in Derbyshire and includes the outcome of a countrywide public consultation conducted during the summer. I will shortly ask the Leader of the Council to move the recommendations in this report. The recommendations are subject to the normal rules of debate and require a simple majority to be approved as detailed in the report. The recommendations may be amended, however, amendments must either add or remove words from the recommendation and not negate the substantive motion. For clarity, amendments may have the effect of recommending an alternative structure for reorganisation to the option that is recommended by the Leader and Chief Executive. This includes options that might not be included in your report. In these circumstances, the Monitoring Officer will advise Council on any legal risks that may arise from that course of action. Should councillors not wish to recommend a preferred option to the Council, Cabinet or object more broadly to local government reorganisation, then you will be directed to vote against the recommendations. We will now move to the debate, except for Councillor Peatfield as a mover. All speeches are limited to 5 minutes duration. Councillor Prosser.
I'd like some clarity before we start, because our Constitution clearly says, under paragraph 4.2, section M, that any proposals relating to local government areas and the transfer, conferment or withdrawal of powers of local authorities reserved for full council. I understand that tonight we are expecting this meeting to be advisory only. However, we have precedent with for instance, the setting up of the East Midlands Mayor, where we've said that full councils had authority. So can we have clarity on that, please? Because it seems unconstitutional today.
Thank you, Councillor Prosser. Advice has previously been provided to all councillors, and both in writing and at the councillor briefing. That advice has clearly stated that the matter before us tonight is a executive business, and therefore the proper decision maker under legislation is the Cabinet and the Executive Leader. Advice has been provided that clarifies that therefore on this matter, Council is a consultee. In making the ultimate decision as to whether to submit a proposal or not, Cabinet and the Leader must have regard to the decision of full Council, as they must the outcome of the public consultation. As I say, that advice has been provided, and that advice has been taken external legal advice, sector-wide advice, and has been confirmed by MHCLG.
Thank you, Emily. Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, tonight we are considering an important decision about Derby's future, one that will shape not just our own city, but the wider county for generations to come. The government has been clear. Local government reorganisation is coming. Councils that show leadership, unity, and a clear preferred option will be the ones at the table when the final deal is struck. Those that hesitate risk being left behind or having decisions made for them. Our reputation as a forward-looking, confident city is on the line. And if we want Derby to stay in the Minister's conversations, if we want to make sure our residents get the best possible deal on powers, funding and influence within the East Midlands Combined County Authority, then we must recommend an option tonight. I want to begin by thanking the Executive Scrutiny Board for its thorough work and its clear recommendation in favour of option B1. The board recognised, rightly, that B1 gives Derby the opportunity to grow its borders in a planned and sensible way, while crucially maintaining the green wedge that separates that growth from the northern unitary area. Their recommendation shows an understanding of what makes Derby unique, our ambition to expand sustainably, protect our environment, and strengthen our role as drivers of jobs, innovation and prosperity for the wider county. Cabinet welcomes the Executive Scrutiny Chair's recommendation on councillor numbers. A balanced approach to representation will be vital to ensure the new unitaries are large enough to be efficient, but still close enough to the people they serve. I also do want to acknowledge the anger expressed by many councillors regarding the decision-making process. I completely empathise with your strength of feeling over this. And please believe me, I am as frustrated as you. Were I in your shoes, I too would be angered. But I would not allow that frustration to jeopardise the future of our city, nor allow it to influence my common sense when it comes to such an important decision. As a council, when we were in opposition, we supported the administration in the creation of MCA because we recognised it was the right thing to do and that it was far, far too important to play politics with. I ask for the same grace from you this evening. This is happening, whether we agree with it or not. So let's recommend the best option for Derby and do all we can, collectively, to keep fighting for the best outcome for our residents. Members will recall, back in January at the first full council meeting on local government reorganisation, Councillor Prosser's amendment at that time was very much in line with what we now know and call option B1, a southern unitary centred on Derby, South Derbyshire, Erewash and part of Amber Valley. And it was testimony to Councillor Prosser that he withdrew his proposal in order for us to work up the data to ensure we had the best choices. And as it turned out, his version was indeed the strongest. That proposal recognised that shared housing market, the interlinked travel to work patterns and the integrated economy that already binds our areas together. In March, when no decision was taken by full council, I listened carefully to the views of opposition leaders. You asked that I take to the table a proposal that explored splitting Amber Valley to reflect its mixed geography and community links. I agreed, and that's precisely what I did. The version that went out for public consultation was not one that this council or I fully supported. That line was drawn by Amber Valley Borough Council, who were reluctant to split the borough. However, at the time, it was important that residents had their say, and due to tight time restrictions with publishing the consultation, I reluctantly agreed, but I reserved the right to revisit that boundary line. From the feedback we received, further technical analysis that followed, and from Derby City Council officer input, led directly to the formulation of the option B1 we see tonight, the option that best balances all the evidence before us. So what is option B1? Why does it matter? B1 creates 2 sustainable unitary councils for Derbyshire, one in the north, one in the south, with a carefully drawn boundary through Amber Valley. That dividing line was not drawn by me, not by Amber Valley Borough Council, and definitely not by the Labour Party. It's important for me to assure you that this line is not a political one. It was drawn, actually, by our planning officers, based on areas already identified for future growth. When we submitted that map to KPMG for deeper analysis, it became clear that this version presented the most equal population split of around 500,000 residents each, the most equal share of gross value added and council tax base, and it was the most reflective of Amber Valley's travel patterns, including our own as well. This means both new unitaries will be financially viable, economically balanced, capable of delivering high-quality services, and keeps communities connected to where they feel they belong. Under option B1, Derby and its southern neighbours would form a new authority that reflects our real economic geography, the pattern of where people live, work, shop and study. It allows us to coordinate housing, transport, skills and infrastructure in a way that makes sense for our communities and for our partners in the East Midlands Combined County Authority.
Councillor Peterfield, just one second. Can I just ask you to switch your phones off, please, and put them on silent? Please, thank you.
No problem, Mr Mayor. It also provides clarity for the north. Chesterfield, Bolsover, North East Derbyshire, High Peak and Derbyshire Dales, forming a coherent area based around market towns, rural economies and tourism. Members, this proposal is not about drawing lines on a map for the sake of it. It's about building a system of local government that's big enough to deliver, but close enough to care. Right now, Derbyshire's patchwork of 10 councils, plus the including the county council, plus our existing unitary creates confusion for residents and duplication for taxpayers. Businesses tell us it's too complicated. Residents tell us it's too slow. Moving to 2 unitaries, as outlined in both the interim proposal and the October 25 submission, it will simplify access to services and make councils easier to deal with. It'll deliver annual savings around 44 million per year after year 6. It'll cut duplication by merging back office functions and reinvest those savings into frontline services, housing and community wellbeing. Option B1 achieves all of this while respecting local identity and ensuring balanced opportunities for growth, north and south of the county. Derby is already the economic heart of this region. Home to world-leading companies in aerospace, rail and advanced manufacturing, B1 strengthens that role. It gives us the scale and influence to work directly with government, MCA and major investors without losing our local accountability. And by aligning the Southern Unitary with our natural economic corridors, Derby, South Derbyshire, Erewash and the southern parishes of Amber Valley, we can all plan... Turn the page. We can plan housing and infrastructure together, attract new investment and deliver sustainable growth while protecting our green belt and green wedges. Our option also ensures the Northern Unitary remains strong in its own right, anchored around Chesterfield and Peak District economy, so the whole of Derbyshire benefits from balanced growth and partnership, not competition. Through this process, we've shown that we can listen, collaborate, and act fairly. When no decision was taken in March by this full council, I did not dig in my heels. I took on board the views of all the political groups and I carried them to the negotiating table. The proposal before us tonight is the result of that openness. It's been refined through extensive consultation. More than 7,000 residents took part, and through professional analysis by KPMG, which found that option B1 met the government's criteria and it was the best balanced geography, finance, opportunity and community identity. This is not about politics, it's about pragmatism, about securing a sustainable future for local government in Derby and Derbyshire. So let's be clear what's at stake. If we choose the recommended option tonight, we send a powerful message to the Minister that Derby speaks with one voice, that we have a coherent, evidence-based plan, and that we're ready to take our place as a strong, confident partner in the new East Midlands devolution landscape. If we fail to choose, others will decide for us, and Derby's influence, our ability to shape that future, will be diminished. Group leaders have been clear from the start that they would not accept a border with the Northern Unitary. Now, Amber Valley are supporting option A. Bolsover and North East Derbyshire are using A as a base and supporting A1. It's unclear at the moment why Derbyshire Dales is supporting. But South Derbyshire is supporting B, leaving Erewash, High Peak and Chesterfield supporting B1. With our backing, that would mean 4 councils supporting that option, making it a clear front-runner. Without our support, there is no clear leading option, and that leaves us vulnerable. Now, I'm sure you've heard by now of Reform County Councils out of the blue U-turn, switching from a 2 unitary option to a single unitary for the entire county, swallowing up Derby City like it did in 1974 for 23 years. That was disastrous for Derby then, and it would be now. In their proposal, Derby would have only 25 councillors, with a ratio of 7,327 residents per councillor. Councillor Ingle, I'm sure you will be the first to condemn that proposal and recognise that we cannot risk that proposal standing as a credible option. Our option that we are supporting gives Derby room to grow. It safeguards the green wedge that defines our city's character and ensures balanced, sustainable governance for the whole county. It builds on the work of this council, the Executive Scrutiny Board, and the vision that all group leaders have shown support for. It sends a message to the Minister, the strongest message that all of the Southern Derbyshire councils agree that the city must have space to grow, and that combined with South Derbyshire's support for B, our preferred option is the most balanced, most supported, most logical, and most united option. So let's grasp this once-in-a-generation opportunity. Please support the option for Derby, Derbyshire, and for the communities we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterfield. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hesselbury. you want to speak now or do you want to reserve your right?
I do second the motion, but I reserve my right to speak if something I can add value to any debate later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more speakers from across the floor? Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As the Leader of the Council has said, this process is led from London. We've not asked for this change, though we do acknowledge that we are built up to our boundaries and that at times is very uncomfortable. And we certainly haven't asked for this process, which seems really tight and constrained. The time frame has been really short, and this is particularly in view of there being a number of other authorities who have gone through this process a year or two ahead of us. Has there been time to be learning from those previous authorities and those changes? I don't think so. And the number of authorities who are now being pushed through at the current programme means that the resources that are going to be needed to be able to make those changes, which will be significant, are going to be constrained. And therefore, when we ask for consultants to come in to bring their experience to support us, those works are likely to be higher, and that money will be paid out of the public purse at whatever level for consultants, because we'll need them. We don't seem to have learnt. We've not asked for it. This is not our process. But at the end of the day, Derby is here because of the will of Parliament. We can't turn around and say we reject this, because we are part of the democratic processes of Britain, and that means we are subservient to the will of Parliament. I personally think that our MPs, not just this year, but going back over the last 5 years probably, could have brought us more support. But particularly, when those first tranches went through, there will have been MPs who would have been lobbied, hopefully, by their councillors to say, why couldn't we have this decision go through full council? And there could have been time for the regulations to be changed, and this meeting could have had a more meaningful role. And I think, historically, those MPs, whoever they were before the last general election, have failed us. And we've ignored, it's not been pulled up in any other way. However, hasn't been too late for some scrutiny. And I think there could be more. We had a really useful meeting, as the leader has said, on Tuesday. There was a lot of things discussed. The meeting lasted over 3 hours. And I think that there were some points that were raised there which need more discussion, or could benefit from more discussion. One of the comments that one of the other councillors made, Councillor John Wright, was, why does it seem that it is large councils that have been struggling, and that it is large councils that are needing help from government and are financially unstable? And why are we therefore making this council for this bigger? Isn't it just going to make us more vulnerable? And the Chief Executive commented that the local authority failures were due to governance and decision-making, not due to their size. That was one of the main learning points that I took from that Tuesday meeting. We have a committee that is dedicated to governance on this council, the Audit and Governance Committee. I have asked at briefings, both when they're being across all councillors and for leaders, and at other times, to say this issue should go to our Audit and Governance Committee and let them consider if there is any more learning that we should be putting into this process. This is virtually the last moment at which we could do that. It could be in a position to consider the issues, cross-party, because that's the way it works, and put any observations it makes through to the Cabinet, which has to make this final decision in the manner that we don't like, but we have to accept because of Parliament. So I have an amendment to do just that. To ask Audit and Governance, this would be 2.2 as an addition to our report, to ask Audit and Governance to consider the proposed submission to the Secretary of State at a special meeting to be held in time to be able to share any observations they see fit to Cabinet before their decision on this matter. If anybody from opposition wishes, well, anybody in the council chamber would like to support me on that, I'm happy to accept a seconder from anybody. Thank you.
Councillor Kev, have you got something in writing so we can put it on the screen, or have you got a piece of document?
Councillors, if you could just bear with us for a couple of seconds, we're just working out the logistics of what has been proposed by Councillor Kerr. I'm very sure.
I'm going to ask for a quick 5-minute adjournment, please, folks, so we could just have a quick look at this, if that's okay. Thank you.
Apologies, councillors, but we didn't have it in advance, so we didn't know this was coming.
Thank you. Have a seat.
Councillors, thank you for your patience while we just considered the proposed amendment from Councillor Kerr, which just for your, just to recap, Councillor Kerr's amendment was to ask Audit and Governance to consider the proposed submission to the Secretary of State at a special meeting to be held in time to be able to share any observations they see fit to Cabinet before their decision on this matter. Following consultation with officers and councillors, my advice to Councillor Kerr is that the proposal to refer to Audit and Governance actually falls outside the terms of reference of Audit and Governance Committee and in addition is impractical for it to be considered before the deadline for consideration of this matter by Cabinet and submission of the proposal to Government. We have, however, had some discussions with the Chair of Audit and Governance Committee during the adjournment and, Mr Mayor, with your permission, it may be useful for Councillor Kieran Morgan-McGeehan to address the meeting briefly.
Councillor McGeehan-Morgan.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kerr, for the amendment to the motion. I think it is worth reflecting just briefly, members, on the role of audit and governance. First of all, for something to pass through the committee, there needs to be some almost like a conduct or a piece of written information, a policy, a procedure, or something that the team can use to audit against. And 9 times out of 10, that would be in a retrospective fashion. Now, I do accept that some process has already been taken on this matter, and I do accept there is probably something to have a look at if Council wants Audit and Governance to have a look at it, and I certainly wouldn't stand in the way of that. But what I would do is I really echo the point about logistics here. I believe that Cabinet is in a week. I might have that wrong, but forgive me if I have. A week in audit terms it's impossible, frankly, to get the information, the requests together, gather the team, understand what it is that we're organising, do some scoping, get some remit down. In a week would be extraordinarily ambitious. However, if it's the will of this council, miracles can happen.
Councillor Kerr, do you wish to speak?
If I may, with the Mayor's permission, I am really sad that we can't give this matter more scrutiny. It clearly has had scrutiny already, but I do welcome the potential that I think we've got there from the Chair of Audit and Governance for this to be something that can be looked at in future as this process will continue, and we can ensure that it is working as best it can for Derby and the wider Derby area. So on the basis of that, unless there are people here who really want to vote on this amendment, I'm happy to withdraw it.
Could I just have the consent of the meeting to the withdrawal of that amendment?
Councillor Hassel, you wanted to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Tonight, all of you should sit here as individuals and as elected members who have taken the time to go through the electoral process and all the pain and anguish that causes and consider how you've got sat in the seat you are tonight. This council, for all its failings and positives, does a decent job. Over the years, I think we've done all right. And that's through debate, disagreement, agreement, unanimity, whatever that word is, togetherness, that's easy to say. But tonight, apart from a handful of us, we are all wasting our time. Okay? At the beginning of this process, we were told quite clearly, at the end of this process, in fact, indeed tonight, you would each and every one of you be able to put your hand in the air and decide what the outcome of this process is. We, every one of us, have been misled. There's no two ways about it. We've gone through this process, some of us pro, some of us against, some of us questioning, and I hope I've tried to engage with officers and as much as I can on this, and I've probed and I've questioned and I've asked lots of awkward questions, but that's what I'm here to do, right? And I thank you, everybody who's replied. I've not always had the reply that I want, but they're the replies nonetheless, because that's democracy, right? But let's talk about democracy. Tonight, democracy is being denied of most of the people in this chamber. And that is fundamentally wrong. And I stand here tonight, not as a leader of this group, but as one of you, okay? One of you. You're the same as me, and I'm the same as you. You've all been on a journey to get where you are tonight. And for what? So you can stand up for the people who put you here. Tonight, you cannot do that. None of you, apart from the people on the front bench. Now, I'm not casting aspersions at the front bench. This is the process. But the process is what I fundamentally disagree with. It is wrong. The process has been rushed, the process is not democratic, and the process is not fair. Even tonight, I've only got 5 minutes to speak. The leader has had untimed amount of time. That isn't fair. Well, I'll try and cram it in the next 2 minutes. We here are sovereign, okay? Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes governments get it right, sometimes they get it wrong, of whatever political colour. The decision that's being put forward tonight is because of some arbitrary government-led timescale. And it's only because of that timescale we're picking the solution that we think best fits. And even by people's admission, they're not entirely happy with it. Well, why are we voting? Well, we can't vote for it, part one, but why are we satisfied with that? Because the government says so. You're here. There's thousands of people voted to put you here, and you're basically going to sit on your hands and let, in the leader's words, it's going to happen to us whether we like it or not. Not right. Not right. On such a fundamental, massive decision that affects every one of you. And by the way, some of you won't be here after this process because, you know, musical chairs, all that business. It can't be right. But please, stand up for yourselves, if anyone else, but more so the people who put you here to make decisions for this council, for this city, and do what's right. Vote against this tonight. Push back. That's what you're here to do. My job to push back and cause a bit of thought in the process. Don't be rolled over. Please. I've got 30 seconds. Please. No whips involved. Vote for yourself here. You can smirk all you like, but you didn't like this process when you was a leader. But happily we got rid of you. But, so, 15 seconds. Do what's right for you and the people who put you here tonight. The process is wrong. Don't settle for it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Is Councillor
Evans?
Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just having recollections of a few years ago during COVID when we had the chamber in the marketplace in the Marquee. And there was a motion put forward there, I think it was Councillor Dinser, about the Rainsway Recycling Centre, removing the permits at the time. It got passed through chamber. It passed with Labour and ourselves and others supported it, and it passed easily. The cabinet decided to do what they wanted to do instead at the time, and we really felt frustrated by that such a big decision affecting so many people in Derby was just the cabinet decided it's this way. Right or wrong, I'm not really knocking the cabinet again, but we're in a situation now where this cabinet could turn around and say, although it's our prerogative and we're making this decision, do you know what? We'll pass it back to the chamber and let it become a truly democratic decision. Pass it back to the chamber. That's being democratic and fair to the people of Derby. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Prosser.
Thank you. Not so long ago, we voted on the East Midlands Mayor, a vote which I didn't think was valid at the time, but apparently, according to recent legal advice, was completely unnecessary because our constitution appears to not stand for what we think it stands for. Whatever's in our constitution has been overwritten in this, and we apparently have no powers to make this decision. Let's be clear, even if we did make a decision in this chamber tonight, regardless of that decision, it won't be this council making it, but it'll be the government. And a lot of it will be out of our hands, which is an extremely negative way of looking at it. I did put forward earlier in the year proposals potentially of which direction we might want to go in. Now, with more information on the table, I would like to bring an amendment. So can we bring the amendment, please?
Just been handed out, Councillor Prosser. Okay, Councillor Prosser, do you want to carry on? Thank you.
Yeah, very briefly, I would like to propose that we align with the County Council's recommendation to the government. The County Council have done some very hard work on this as well. Who was that? Can we have some respect?
Come on, guys, let him speak, please. Councillor Prosser, carry on.
Yeah, so I would like to propose that we align with the county. I'm sure Alan Graves will fill in various details as to why that's such a really good idea. It is a good idea. There is lots and lots of savings to be made, some bigger savings to be made as a large group. Thank you very much.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Cuss. Councillor Repton.
Just Councillor Cuss, just...
Fine. This reminds me of Back to the Future, because I can remember as a councillor who was voted on in 1987, when we were a small parochial borough council, and the county council had control over the majority of services that the people that we represented wanted access to. This would be an incredibly retrograde step for any councillor here today who truly represents his constituents to actually support. And I would urge all of you, irrespective of party politics, this will be the worst of all worlds, this actual motion that's being put before us tonight. It would give the county back powers that we've had for many, many years and responsibilities. And our people that we represent would certainly not thank us for it. So I would urge all of you not to vote for going back to the past, as Councillor Prosser would urge you to do, and I'm sure Councillor Graves as well, because he has his eye on a much bigger sort of castle to control from the county, and vote this down. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Graves.
Councillor Graves and then Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that Councillor Peatfield did say that she spent a lot of time on LGR and that it has taken a long time to get to this point. And I respect the fact that she's taken this time over this particular issue. I too have taken some time over this, although I've only had since May, as you probably appreciate. And originally, I was believed that the two unitary option was the best option because that was what the City Council thinks. When you get into the wider world called Derbyshire, and I think actually you are part of Derbyshire, you can see that there are lots of things to play in here. Now, we looked at the two-tier option, and we all know what happens when you pick a two-tier option. Everybody doesn't like it. We found that the figures don't really stack up as well as if you have one unitary, a uniting Derbyshire option. I think this unites Derbyshire, all our residents, as one. So when you look at the figures, and we've been very prudent in the county about how the figures stack up, if you pick any of the options, and I've not got the actual figures for the B1, but I have got options for B, the most that you can save on the two unitary options is 40-odd million over 6 years. If you go for the single unitary option, you can actually save 144 million over 6 years and 45 million for every year after that. Now, that's just the financial side of things. If you then look at the identity of Derbyshire, there's lots of identities. There's lots of identities within the city. There's not just one identity. There's lots of different identities. That's the same within Derbyshire. We have lots of communities all the way around. And I came to the conclusion from the consultation that nobody particularly liked any of the options that were being put forward. And if you look at your own consultation, if you look at the consultation of the district councils, they also didn't come up with any overwhelming, we want this. Most people didn't want two unitaries. To me, that therefore gave the reason why you should actually go for one. So, Councillor Peafield talked about Amber Valley. Amber Valley was a difficult area. Amber Valley couldn't decide whether they wanted to be in the north or the south. And then, you know, you've got the other areas where the border is. There are people saying, well, is it in the right place? Is it not in the right place? So I think that the best option is not to put any borders in there. We already have a proper border. We have a clear border, and it's called Derbyshire. And whether people like it in the city or not, you are part of Derbyshire. And I actually think a uniting Derbyshire option that we've put forward here is probably and will be the best option. Now, I accept that some of the parameters that the government has set, such as somewhere between 500,000 to 800,000 as a population, it goes over that mark. The same goes with the number of councillors. They wanted no more than 100. So we've opted for 112. Although I believe that if this is selected, it will mean that we have some negotiation about those numbers. Apart from that, everything else stacks up. And I think the government will be hard-pressed not to see that in a very serious light, to say, actually, we talk about wanting to save money. That's where we can save money. And at the same time, we can unite Derbyshire. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. Councillor Peafield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Graves, I have to ask, who are you actually representing here tonight? Because you've referred to we as your council several times, meaning the county council. But this is your council tonight. Derby City Council is your council tonight.
When I talk about we, I'm talking about all the residents of Derbyshire.
Is this being conducted properly?
Councillor Graves, I'll come back to you in a second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last full council meeting, Councillor Graves said, and I quote, "You wouldn't get this clapping in my council." And he was referring to my council as Derbyshire County Council, while stood as a councillor for Alveston in Derby City Council. And I have to ask you, Councillor Graves, does Alveston want this? Does Alveston want one county, one council being ruled by Matlock? because nobody has consulted on this option. On this version of this option has not touched Derby City. Nobody has given their opinion on that. So you talk, Councillor Hassel, about democracy. How is that democratic? 1 million people in Derbyshire. Can you imagine one council trying to govern 1 million people? And when we look at the data on the County Council's proposal, only 25 councillors would be representing Derby. That's nearly 7,500 residents per councillor. So unmanageable. And if you look into the data, they are squashing together wards. So Chaddesden and Spondon would be joined together. Sinfin and Chellaston joined together. Alveston North and South joined together. Darley and Alistry joined together. It's... you get the picture. This is supposed to be an argument against. Also, looking at Councillor Graves' data, the criteria of the government, he's weighted the criteria so that he can skew the numbers to bring this option out as the most favourable one. Nobody anywhere else in the country has done that because the government criteria, there's 6 points of criteria that every council has to meet, are just the 6 points. They are just 6 points you have to meet. Nobody should be weighting them, but yet, the data, you can manipulate it, apparently, by weighting that criteria. So it's an absolute bogus proposal. As Councillor Repton, who remembers the days when we were governed by Matlock, the residents of Derby had less of a say, less representation. They did not feel that their council represented them, which is why, as soon as possible, we pulled away from that option. It's why the Unitary Council was formed in the first place. And if everybody in this room was worried about still being able to connect with their community, about still being able to represent their community, then you absolutely cannot back this amendment. Do not cut your nose off to spite our face. Please, please, let's be the grown-ups in the room and do the best thing for Derby City. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peatfield. Councillor Hassel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just starting with the point Councillor Peatfield ended with, was doing the best for Derby City. You can do no more better than standing up for the people who put you where you are. But the amendment, that's come forward highlights perfectly the absurdity of this process, because the process now allows any cabinet to adopt any area, amendment or iteration that hasn't been consulted on and adopt it as long as it's got some evidence. Bonkers. Craziness. So not only are we sort of wasting our time talking about an amendment, because the Cabinet can do as they wish anyway, and I'm not saying they would go against or for that. I don't think the mood music says not. But I come back to the process. You've been denied your vote. You've been denied sovereignty of this room. That must count for something. Please, listen. Don't just, because the government says you must, don't just fall in line. Push back. If tonight was a free vote for everybody, let's talk about LGR, because we've not really talked about that, and I certainly haven't. We're not debating the merits and demerits of what's being put forward, because the process is flawed. We should be asking for better information, evidence, not a wish list of stuff that may or may not happen. And I really have to flag during a leaders' briefing on this. This is about savings, and I get that. Value for money for taxpayers, all day long, not a problem. What happens to the money that is saved? Is it fired back into these councils? Of course it isn't. No, it isn't. There's no proof. Sorry, Nadine. There's no proof it goes back into the council. It's clawed back into the government and distributed as they see fit. Now, if you think they're the right people to decide that, you need to decide on that tonight. There's no proof. You've not been presented with evidence, and that's what you're here to do. Judge on what's in front of you. At the minute, you've got a wish list, hopefulness, and let's cross our fingers it all works out in the end. If you push back and say, no, please, I want this done properly, I want some evidence, I want some time, and I want an actual vote on it. That's what you're here to do tonight. Please don't, please.
You have a second speech.
I know, it's great. But please, I've made the point, I won't labour it any further. This is about you. It's not about me, it's not me causing trouble, and me being childish. This is me standing up for you in this chamber and saying, actually, this isn't right. You can't, it's impossible that everyone in this room agrees this is right. Because it can't be. It cannot be. Do what's right, vote against it, push back, get what's due. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Is there any more speakers on the amendment? Councillor Cuss, do you wish to speak? All those in favour of the amendment?
Four.
All those against?
More.
That amendment's lost. Thank you.
Were there any more speakers on
Right,
the
going back to the substantive motion. Is there any more speakers on that, please?
Okay.
Councillor Onwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Mayor. I just thought I'll... Not even sure. I wasn't planning to speak, but Councillor Hassel has gotten on his soapbox and keeps talking about, well, this is about you, this is about people that got you here, and it is. But what he's failed to say is that as a leader, and together with other leaders, he'd been consulted on numerous occasions about this process. Every single councillor in this chamber, we've all had trainings and councillor training sessions about LGR. So to stand here and make it seem like he's in the dark is theatrics.
Been very clear, it is the process. I'm fully aware of the information. I might or may or not like it. Point of order. Please don't put words in my mouth.
Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Just 1 second, Councillor. Just 1 second.
Could I just please take this opportunity just to remind councillors again of the correct procedure. CP 47F is a point of personal explanation. If you wish to make a point of personal explanation, please stand up and say point of personal explanation under CP 47F, please. Thank you.
Councillor Onwa, thank you.
Yeah, and residents have also been consulted on the options. I think it's, when we get into this chamber, we have a point of responsibility to not use it as a staging ground for our political theatrics and to try and get some headline in the papers. Because he's aware, he may not agree with the ultimate decision being given to the cabinet. However, if we're still a country of law and order, if laws matter, we may not have our personal agreements with those laws, but if the law says this is the process, then let us not, for the sake of what the headlines might carry tomorrow, make it look like we're subverting the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Onwa. Councillor Matt Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I made it clear in my role as Exec Chair that we were tasked with scrutinising the report being sent to Cabinet. And that recommends option B with a base and B1 as a modification to the boundary, which is a vital element for reasons I've relayed in that meeting and others previously. But Exec, by virtue of its rigid remit, quite rightly has to focus on the details before them to scrutinise what's being considered is going to be considered by the Cabinet. And I thank the exec members for their contributions and their patience during a difficult meeting. The point was made on Tuesday that tonight's full council is a consultee, with the Cabinet executive making the formal decision. You know, it's a chance to express views and raise debate, but not to make decisions. And we've had, obviously, a lot of discussions over that many of us are unhappy about that process, but it is what it is. And do I have concerns? Yeah, of course I do. I mean, quite early on, I sent a very long rant and or my considered views, delete as applicable, to the CEO of the council. I feel the process is being rushed. I'm not happy that full council isn't making the decision, as I've mentioned. I also wanted the city to be expanded, to be formally considered. And I'm sceptical that a bigger unitary authority, or LGR in the whole, is going to be better for the communities that we currently represent, and those that will be formed, of course, in the future as a result. But as Mick Jagger says, you can't always get what you want. And however, it remains to be seen if sometimes you might just find you get what you need. Who knows? And as I said at exec, who represents the communities within the new UA unitary authority remains to be seen. But it's clear to me that the job is going to be a tough one, and we need the best of us, especially during that first term. And those who were planning on retiring in 2027, well, it's tough because you're staying on another year, as I said at exec. The public may ask, why is the need for all of our terms to be extended until 2028, alongside those elected to the new UA unitary authority? But I'd say it's going to be vital as structures and services are being built up, merged and restructured. It's going to be a huge undertaking, and those who will be tasked to deliver that must do what they can to make it work. So the recommendation that I made at exec scrutiny, and I'm grateful for the leader that she's indicated that she accepts it, and hopefully it will also be accepted by government, will attempt to ensure that councillor numbers across the new unitary authority aim to provide the most solid foundation to support and equalise representation for communities moving forward. That modestly higher number of councillors, in my view, will be vital before and after boundary change. So please don't take this as support or validation of LGR. I still have huge concerns, but if I was to take one positive from option B1, it would be that it doesn't constrain the city boundaries, and that goes some way to deliver my very long-standing view that the city, for city boundary expansion, it's a means to an end to a degree. Not perfect, but I'll take it. That was dismissed early in the process, and I'm pragmatic now. I realise that this will happen. It's going to be submitted to government, whether I or we like it or not. It's not full council's decision, it's the cabinet. So really, over to you. You do what you need to do, and we'll see where this goes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Is there any more speakers? Councillor Wright.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't go over the issue of the full council not having final say over this. I think that point's been well made. I also support Councillor Holmes in that my natural inclination would be to support reorganisation. My real concern is points already made by Councillor Kerr and others. I think it's been too rushed. I think we've not got a direct evidence base. And when there is a direct evidence base, like other local authorities have been through this, the evidence suggests they don't make the money up in years because services expand, they take up the extra revenue. And just to quote one example, one county in the northwest, when they started, they predicted they were going to get 33.5 million in savings over 5 years. 2 years into the reorganisation, they're now saying that they might make 15 million over an indefinite number of years. So we're not looking at what's actually happened. And as Councillor Kerr made the point, we're not learning the lessons. Another one is, the figures that we've been quoted for Derby in the city, they're based on highly optimistic assumptions. And I don't feel as they've been properly tested, properly evaluated. So, as been mentioned, it's really, it's a wish. And I know, reflecting on Councillor Holmes' position, because of the talented people we've got in officers and councillors, we will make it work because that's what we do. But we shouldn't have to make it work because while we're focusing on making a bad job better, we're not delivering for the people of Derby. That's what we should be focusing on at the moment, giving enough time for us to go through this properly. So we're not learning the lessons of other authorities who've been through it. We're basing some of our assumptions on a very optimistic view of the future. And just by one other example, when we survey our residents in Chaddiston, every time community safety, public safety, antisocial behaviour comes number one. If you're taking the time to look at the, I have to say, a very well-presented prospectus of the options, very well put together, you'll see that community safety has got a very little input, and the only benefit we're going to get from joining together is we're going to have a single point of contact for all of the districts in the city in the future. Now, I'm sure that with a bit of cooperation, we could do that tomorrow. We could get a single point of contact. Where's all the big advantages we're going to get in terms of reducing crime, reducing public order? Nothing at all is mentioned. What the point I'm trying to make is we're trying to make this case look good from a political perspective, but I don't think it's serving the residents of Derby at the moment, and we need time to think it through, and crucially, we need to bring the final decision back to this council so that we can all have an input based on what Councillor Hassel said. We can all express own opinions based on the evidence, not on speculation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Is there any more speakers? Councillor Miles Patterson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Members may remember when we had our first LGR meeting many months ago, I made an amendment on that night to delay the process. And the meeting was adjourned for well over an hour. I was pulled out of this room along with the leader of my group, and council officers sat there and put forward the case of why we had to meet the government deadline. It had to be met. We were going to be left in the dark. We were going to be left with other counties, other districts, other boroughs in Derbyshire progressing their LGR plans, and Derby would be left behind. We came back into that chamber, and members of opposition groups voted for that motion that night to delay LGR. The leader of the council stood up and said it was an embarrassing decision for Derby, and what councillors that night had done was completely embarrassing. What happened in the days after that...
Councillor Swan.
What happened in the days after that was democracy in process. The Secretary of State, when he was notified of our decision to delay, wrote back to the council, I believe it was to the Chief Exec and the leader, and said, we completely respect your decision to delay LGR. Take some more time if that is the will of full council. Those headlines being labelled embarrassing didn't really stand up for too long. In fact, the Secretary of the State of Government for Government soon decided it wasn't an embarrassing decision. And that was the democratic process. That was the will of full council voted on by the majority of councillors in this chamber. There is no process like this tonight. We have already shown that it works. We have already shown that despite government telling us we need to meet these deadlines, that there is a bit of give and take. And if full council, all of us in here who represent the residents of Derby, want to have a voice and say, take more time, then government has listened in the past. And we've heard tonight about some of the concerns, and I still have concerns about some of the figures and the predictions and the estimates that exist in option B1 that's being put forward tonight. We keep hearing about these savings, and Councillor Wright and others have already talked about, how accurate are these savings? These are numbers that are being put together by consultants based down in London who are going to be eating very well over Christmas, thanks to the government's LGR deadline and the number of councils that are coming to them to start crunching all these figures. But they are, at the end of the day, ultimately estimates. And my biggest concern is around something that hasn't been mentioned yet tonight, which is council tax. Council tax harmonisation. I brought this up in a briefing previously to try and get an understanding of what LGR and this option will mean for the council tax of residents in this city. And residents should be informed, if they didn't already know, they now know, that council tax across the new unitary will be harmonised. And I still can't get an answer on what that means for the council tax that many residents in this city pay. There is every chance that residents in this city after LGR will see a blanket increase on their council tax to harmonise with the other districts and boroughs in the current authority. There was an example I saw of a Leicestershire councillor the other day, after their exec scrutiny, was told that residents in their district were going to get a flat increase of 8% to their council tax as soon as LGR went through. And I think in Nottinghamshire there are also similar examples coming out. So while we talk about all the savings that a council can achieve, we're not actually talking about what that means for the residents. Just because the council's saving money, does that mean the residents are going to be paying less? Is their council tax going to go down? Is their council tax suddenly going to go up? And this goes back to my issue with the process all along. This is so rushed. This has been rushed from the start. There are still really important questions that still haven't been answered. There's still more detail in the savings and the governance, like Councillor Kerr referenced, and council tax for residents. That is a massive issue that they are going to want to know about. And we're standing here tonight and we can't give them an answer. And what's fundamentally flawed is that ultimately that decision is taken out of the majority of councillors' hands in this chamber, that's taken out of residents' hands, and the decision on council tax and what their future boundaries look like is going to be made by a front bench and the Secretary of State down in London. So I don't agree with this process at all. I've been vocal about it from the start. I've shown that if this council comes together and acts as a full council in its democratic process, government will listen, but that's been completely taken out of our hands tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Besson. Any more speakers? Councillor Peatfield, back to yourself. Councillor Hasworth, do you wish to speak as a seconder? Councillor Peatfield, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank everybody, actually, for the debate this evening. You know, we've all spoken with passion and we've all spoken with purpose, and regardless of whether we agree or not, I'm glad that we've been able to have a good debate this evening. I have listened. I have advocated your views when you've spoken out in this whole process, and I will continue to do so, including the executive scrutiny's recommendation to increase the number of councillors. Not only will, we hope to support that in Cabinet, but I will advocate and fight for that too. So, please don't think that this is completely out of your hands. Although it is an executive decision, what you decide tonight matters to us. We have to consider your recommendation as part of our decision. But if you don't make a recommendation, then there is nothing to consider. So please do think about that. And I'm glad to hear Councillor Hassel saying that it's a free vote tonight, because I really hope that there are enough people in this chamber that are taking this decision seriously enough to realise and recognise that we should be putting forward a proposal. We should be putting forward the best proposal that we have. And we should be advocating for that decision on behalf of our residents. Just to correct a couple of things that came up in the debate, I can't pass the decision back to full council. I just can't. It's not allowed to happen. So it has to be an executive decision. I checked, and the monitoring officer can confirm it for you if needed, but it's not something that is in my power to do. In terms of the council tax, that will be the decision of the new shadow authority that comes into being in 2027. That's not washing my hands of it, Councillor Smale. That it will be a new authority, and it will be a new shadow authority. We cannot take the decision until the new authority is in place. We cannot make a decision on on another authority's council tax. And I have to correct Councillor Hassel on his funding comments. The funding does not go back to government. The point is to make savings that are already within the system in order for there to be more money available to spend on frontline services. So I would like to take the Cabinet decision in 2 weeks' time with full council's backing. And I think I would be very disappointed if at this very last hurdle we fail to exercise this bit of democracy that we have. Because with no clear frontrunner, we risk our city being restricted by a border to the north and the northwest, and that will affect Micklover, it will affect Mackworth. Or even worse, we could be consumed by the county to become one big super council. And as we've all discovered this evening in this chamber, we have all clearly stood against that version. Almost all. So, with all of those things in mind, I'm asking you, Council, please back the most equal version that we are proposing tonight, so that when we come to the Cabinet meeting, we know we have your backing and your endorsement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Peatfield. Okay, ladies and gents.
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor
CP 47. Point of personal explanation. Because of this process, Mr. Mayor, and so fundamental that we feel against.
Can you just identify the point for me, Councillor Hassel?
Councillor Hassel, in making your point, you have to pinpoint what has been said which was incorrect about in respect of you.
Just walk out. With respect, Mr. Mayor, because of tonight's indecision in this chamber and the lack of democracy in this chamber, and with the greatest respect to you, I and my group will remove ourselves from the chamber, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Peatfield, please, can we move to the vote? All those in favour? Sorry, beg your pardon. Councillor Peatfield. 10, please.
Thank you.
The rest of you can say only 10. Take your time.
We've still got 3 left.
Okay. Councillors, can I just have, before we're not quorum, can I take this to the vote, please?
Just bear. Recorded vote.
Okay, you'll be happy to know it's quorate and time to put it to the vote. So, Alex, over to you.
Thank you for your patience, councillors. When I read your name, will you please indicate whether you are for or against the recommendations as printed in your agenda papers and moved by the Leader of the Council? Firstly, Councillor Amin, please. For. Councillor Ashby. For. Councillor Bolton. For. Councillor Bonser. For. Councillor Kerr. For. Councillor Chambers. For. Councillor Dinser. For. Councillor Evans. Against. Councillor Eyre has left, sorry. Councillor Falk. Councillor Graves. Councillor Hazelgrave. For. Councillor Hudson. For. Councillor Kaur. For. Councillor Jangir Khan. For. Councillor Shiraz Khan. For. Councillor Kozlowski. For. Councillor Kuss. Abstain. Councillor Lonsdale. For. Councillor Martin. For. Councillor Nawaz. For. Councillor Anwar. For. Councillor Peatfield. For. Councillor Prosser. Yes. Councillor Rawson. Councillor Repton? Councillor Sandhu? Councillor Shanker? Councillor Swan? Councillor Cecile Wright? And the Mayor, Councillor Atwell, please. That completes voting, Mr Mayor. The motion is carried by 24 votes to 4.
Okay, folks, thank you. That concludes our business this evening. Thank you for your patience, and I look forward to seeing you all again at the scheduled meeting in a few days' time. Have a good evening. Thank you.
That's the best council meeting I've been to.
Drama.
Great.